guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, as you can tell from the title, is another 3 recipes for under £1 per portion. They are all vegetarian recipes and can be made vegan. And the first recipe is the chorizo pasta bake. So let's get straight into the recipe.
Another day, another recipes under £1 and all of the ingredients you need. We're going to use about 300 grams of pasta. You can use any pasta you want. This is the cheapest other than spaghetti, so I'm using that. A pepper and red onion. I'm using 4 garlic cloves, but you can do that to taste, less might be better for you. A can of chopped tomatoes. Of course, chorizo sausages. So the price I'm putting up on the screen for these is the price on sale, because that is the only time I buy them. And we're going to only use 3. If you would like more filling, you can add more sausages, more pepper, more onion, but it will of course increase the price. I found this is enough to get the flavour in and to fill up my tummy. Some oil, again any oil you would like. Some chilli, once again to taste. Some oregano. And then to top, some cheese, again for your choice. That's all you're going to need. Let's show you how I cook it. First, we're going to start by dicing up all of our ingredients. So dicing up the pepper, the red onion and the chorizo sausages into small little cubes that we are going to then fry in oil. While I chop the veg, I also have a pan of water on the boil for the pasta, and I will be adding that once that starts to boil. Add a tablespoon of whatever oil you decide. Here I'm using olive oil, but any will do, into a hot pan. And then once that is hot enough, add in your onion. Leave your onion to cook for a few minutes until soft. Then we're going to add in however much garlic you decide to add to this dish. I added 4 cloves. And again, let that fry off for a little bit longer. As well as I also add in a sprinkle of chili powder. You do not need to add this in if you do not like the spice. I just added it in for a bit of extra kick. So I added in some chili powder and a little bit of smoked paprika. Once the herbs and spices have fried off, I add in my chorizo, and you might need to add a splash of water here and there if you are using vegetarian chorizo. If you're using real chorizo, the fats should grease it for you. And once they've cooked down a bit, I follow that with the red pepper. Once they've been cooking for a little while, I add in the can of chopped tomatoes. Then, after adding in the chopped tomatoes, I fill up the can with water halfway and make sure I get any little bits of tomato sauce left and put that in too. And then we're just going to leave that to cook for a while. Once the pasta is all cooked, follow your packet instructions. I drain off the water, but I keep about 1/4 cup of the pasta water to add into the dish to help with the flavour. So I pour the pasta straight into the sauce once that's been cooking down. I decided to cook my pasta bake in a pan that can go on the hob and in the oven. So once I've mixed it all together, I grate some cheese, and then that is ready to go in the oven whenever you deem fit. So I actually put this in the fridge for the day because this was the morning I filmed this, and then when I got back from all of our clubs later on, it just slid in the oven and we had that, and it took about 20 minutes in the oven. And then this is what it looks like after about 15-20 minutes in an oven. And this served about 5 of us, so it can do between 5 to 6 people, depending on how much you eat, of course, and if it was real chorizo or vegetarian chorizo. If you're eating vegetarian chorizo, then you're going to need a bit more as of a portion.
This is how much it costs for the per portion for the chorizo pasta bake. So the chorizo pasta bake serves around 5 to 6 portions, depending on how big of a portion you have, of course. This is Joel's curry recipe. Please, it is not a traditional curry. Like, we unfortunately have not got the skills to be able to make a true traditional Indian curry. They are just so much better. But if you having a bit of a craving for a curry, you don't want to spend a fortune on a takeaway, this should hopefully hit that spot.
Joel is about to make a curry, and here are the ingredients we are going to need.
You can also replace any of the veg for different veg, but that will change the price, of course.
We've got a cauliflower, 2 onions, we're going to use about half of this garlic, a pepper. And then we are using tofu because they had some in Aldi for 99p, but you could also use chickpeas instead. It will bring the price down a bit. Then we've got tomato puree, stock cube, chopped tomatoes and coconut milk. And then these are the spices you're going to need. You've got ground coriander, turmeric, ground ginger, garam masala, or you can replace that with just curry powder, ground cumin and some brown sugar. Joel begins by chopping up the cauliflower because that needs to be roasted beforehand. So he's going to chop the cauliflower and tofu, and then when they are roasting he'll chop up and prep all the other vegetables that are going into this dish. You should roast your cauliflower in oil for around 20 minutes before you add it to the dish. Joel does add extra spices, the same spices that we put in the curry, but that's just optional, you do not have to do it. So after roughly chopping the peppers and onions into quite big chunks, we're going to add the peppers, then the onions, and then once they've softened and fried down a bit, we're going to add the garlic and the rest of the spices. Then you're going to leave the spices to cook for a few minutes before adding anything else, and probably about 2 or 3 minutes of the spices cooking to release the good flavours. Then we add in a can of chopped tomatoes, then a whole tube of tomato puree. Give that a good mix and let that cook down for a bit. The camera cut it out, but we also added in the can of coconut milk as well. And then once the coconut milk was added, we gave it a good mix. And then around this time, the tofu and the cauliflower was ready, so we also added that, gave that a good mix, and then you can leave it to simmer. The longer you leave it to simmer, the more the flavours will enhance, but that is your curry all ready to go. We decided to have this curry with rice because I found it's mostly the cheapest option. You can also have it with naan bread. How we make our rice is we use about one big mug. We use this mug because it's the biggest mug we have, and that's a great portion size for us four. We fill it up to the top with rice, then put that into a pan, then fill this cup up to the top again with cold water, and then we fill it half up. So it's about 1.5 cups of whatever you measure your rice at with a cold water. Then you put that all in a pan, give it a very, very, very gentle mix that the rice is covered and sunk to the bottom. Then we literally just cover it with a lid, make sure it comes to a boil. Once it's at a boil, we turn it down and leave it until all of the water has evaporated. Once all the water has evaporated, we, with a fork, give it a slight mix, put the lid back on again to steam for a little bit, about 5 minutes, and then that is the rice ready. This is how much it costs per portion for the curry and rice. You can have it with naan bread, you can have it with just the curry on its own, you can have it with whatever you want. Of course it will affect the price, but this will serve around 6 people. Now, the final recipe you have come to watch is you can call it a gardener's pie, shepherd's pie, cottage pie, whatever. And you can completely make this your own and add and take away what you would like. I have used a couple of cans of tinned lentils, but you can use dry lentils, probably potentially be cheaper. I just had to use these ones up. You can use mince, real or vegetarian mince. So let's get straight into the next and final recipe. This is what we're going to need for our gardener's pie, shepherd's pie, cottage pie, whatever you want to call it. So first of all, these are the ingredients we'll need for our topping, which we're going to make some mashed potato. I'm not going to be showing you exactly how I make mashed potato because I feel like that's pretty basic and you can find recipes online. But potatoes, butter and milk, and we'll obviously add some salt and pepper and probably some parsley. Then this is what we need for the actual pie. We're going to use lentils, but you can also use mince or like vegetarian mince, an onion, a couple of parsnips, a little hack is just the cheap mixed vegetables, save you some time and having to chop loads and buy different ones. It's normally a bit cheaper. I'm going to add some sage, a bay leaf, a stock cube, some gravy, some garlic, and then I also add a layer of stuffing before my mashed potato. So I make the pie and then I'll make a layer of stuffing to go on top. Firstly, I'm going to start by prepping my potatoes for the mashed potato. I'm going to peel them. You do not have to throw these peels away. You can make potato skin crisps if you'd like to. Gonna put them in some cold water and bring them to a boil, and these will be boiling while I do the rest of the pie. Once the onion and parsnip are all diced up, I'll have a pan on the stove heating up, and when that's hot I will add some oil in and start frying off the onions. Once the onions have gotten soft, I add in the parsnips. I also added in a little bit of garlic. This is optional, you do not have to do this. Followed by the bay leaf and some sage. While they were cooking, I drained and rinsed my 2 cans of lentils. Obviously, if you're using dried lentils, then you need to pre-cook these before all of this. And I added them into the pan, let them cook some more, followed by a sprinkle of gravy granules and stock. So I'm lazy. You can make the gravy separately and then pour it in. I don't. I just sprinkle gravy granules in and then add water later on. I just find it easier and less washing up. By adding the stock and the gravy granules, consistently mix, and then add in my frozen veg, as well as a cup or two, or probably about 1.5 cups of water, and then I leave that with the lid on to simmer away for a bit to defrost the veg. And I'm also adding in lots of salt and pepper. So the lid's going to go on and that will cook for a bit. While that's cooking, I am going to make my stuffing following the instructions on the packet. It's around the time that my potatoes are all cooked, so I rinse them off, add in my butter and milk, and then I'm going to start mashing them into a softer paste. After that's done, the pie mixture is starting to come together. You can see it boiling away and then flavours are incorporating lovely. And then I actually take that off the stove to cool down a bit so it gets a bit harder on top before I top it with the stuffing and potatoes. Now that has cooled down for a while and I have prepped my stuffing and my potatoes, I'm going to top my pie. So first I put all of the stuffing on top of my pie mixture and I just spread that out as evenly as possible, and then follow it with my potato. And as you can see, I like a lot of potato on my pie. So we top that all, give it a scrape and make it look as pretty as possible. And I don't normally add this, it was a last minute decision, but I sprinkled a little bit of cheese on top just to help that yumminess. And then that's going to go into the oven until it's hot all the way through and the top is golden and crispy, just like it is right here. And then this is how much it costs per portion for the shepherd's pie. The one that I made serves about 5 to 6 people, again, depending on the portion size. If you make any of these with real meat, then you are going to want a smaller portion, so it potentially could feed more as well. That is the 3 recipes I have for you today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you would like my other recipes under £1 videos, I will link them down below. As well as I did a £20 weekly food shop budget challenge. I'll also link that. I might try and do another one of those with a bit of a bigger budget, because that was back in, I think, October, November time, and unfortunately, food prices have gone higher since then. That is everything for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Like and subscribe if you did, it helps out the channel, and I will see you in my next one. Bye, friends.